Hello students, faculty, and staff. I am Shadonna Garm, your host for Beneath the Surface, and today we have a special guest, Dr. James Pope, who is a new addition to Winston-Salem State University Liberal Studies Department and a great researcher. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, and as I stated, you're a new addition this semester, so I just want to know what brought you to Winston-Salem State University?
Winston-Salem, what brought me down here was looking for another opportunity, a more stable opportunity. Winston-Salem State. I was also looking, coming from Virginia Commonwealth University, which is a PWI, I was also looking to be at a HBCU as well. So the opportunity opened up. So I would say opportunity brought me down here.
So has the experience been different here at a HBCU than the PWI?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How?
Oh, how many ways you want me to begin? Number one of the things that we often get the mistake of is when we talk about HBCUs, we get the mistake that we think that it's a monolithic type of demographic, but if you look at it culture, even though people look the same way, everybody has different perspectives, different ideas, different things, and different ways of being. So there's a very diverse campus. PWIs generally, even though you have a what you would call, I guess, multicultural, everybody tends to be the same way, tends to think the same way, tends to move in the same directions. And I guess it's based upon society pushing people going to a different way, going to a certain way. So it is definitely different. This is not my first HBCU. I've taught at Howard University in Washington, D.C. for about 8 years or so.
Okay. So your educational background, it will lead one to believe that you're interested in law, but you're here in the Liberal Studies Department. How did that happen?
Well, Liberal Studies Department, it's a label. But also, liberal studies, what it means is it's made up of different parts. So even though law is an aspect of what I look at, it is not the only thing. So being in liberal studies provides me the opportunities to be free to look at an interdisciplinary way in whatever I'm studying. What I do is I do Africana studies. I specifically look at the continuities between socio-political thought and cultural behavior of Africans and diasporic Africans. And so doing that, you can't look at it in one particular way. So law is one of the ways I do, looking at international law and how it impacts the ways Africans and people of African descent deal with nation states or deal with each other, or deal in international settings. So liberal studies it's just a name that makes up, and you have different people, different disciplines that make that makes the department up.
So would you say Africans or people with African descent, would you say the research of that area is your passion?
Yes, passion, duty, responsibility, everything above. Yes, absolutely. Growing up, I was very interested. History was actually one of my favorite subjects, but moving along in my academic and also professional endeavors and coming in contact with a number of individuals who are now my mentors who were also in different movements, whether it was African liberation movements in the 1970s, or also the civil rights movement here in the United States and the Black Power movement, the Black Arts movement. So have a wide range of background of individuals who have been able to kind of impact my academic trajectory. So yeah, it's definitely been definitely a good journey.
So I did look at your resume, and I saw that you were researching. You were doing 2 researches, and one was supposed to be published this year.
Yes. Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about that and what you expect the readers to get from it.
Well, actually, the first project that I'm actually working on is an anthology, and what I'm doing is with this anthology is that I'm looking at the continuities, the continuities of socio-political thought and cultural behavior of continental Africans and also diasporic Africans. And what I'm looking at and what I'm doing is that I'm looking at through the lens of movements. How does movements kind of expand our understanding of rights, individuals? And the cultural behavior part of that is, what do Africans ancestrally or in ancient times throughout pre-colonial days, colonial days, and also anti-colonial days, how did that conversations of of resistance, fighting colonial and imperialism, how did that translate itself around a diaspora? So this particular project is actually just based upon the research that I have been doing and connecting individuals in the diaspora here in the United States, but also in the Caribbean or in Latin or South America. How are they writing in their own context? And how is that having a conversation with diasporic Africans who were fighting for liberation as well? So it's more like kind of making a all in one place, a book that people can look at and say, well, you know, resistance was happening in Ethiopia against the Italy invasion. What was happening in the 1800s at the same time? You have individuals, you have maroon communities in South America, the Caribbean, here in the United States that are fighting for liberation as well. You have enslaved Africans who are resisting as well. So these conversations are going on, and what I wanted to do with this project is provide a source book, so to speak, of those interdisciplinary but more international contexts, how we look at things, to look at things in a more internationalist perspective.
So when this year can we expect to see that?
Interesting that you say that, because I just got a call from the publisher the other day. We're online. It's going to probably be out by the end of the year now. Okay. There were some changes that happened with the publisher. The editor I was working with took another opportunity, so now there's another editor to have to get caught up. So, which actually was good for me, because now I have time to really, really expand. So it's going to be later this year, probably in the fall.
Okay. In addition to your research and your teaching here at Winston-Salem State University, you also have you also co-host and produce a radio show.
Yes.
Tell me more about that. How did you get into radio?
Oh my goodness.
From, you know?
Oh well. How did Africa Now? Africa Now is a radio program that is heard on Pacifica Radio 89.3 WPFW in Washington, D.C. It is part of the Pacifica Network. Pacifica was a network that is started in Berkeley, California, but have 5 stations, one in New York, one in D.C., another one in L.A., and a couple of other, I think there were 5 or maybe 4 now. And it was started as basically an anti-war radio station that really looked to kind of be the voice of what they call the voiceless at that particular time. I generally don't think that I generally don't accept or subscribe to the idea that there's someone that's voiceless. Sometimes we need to amplify that voice. But anyway, this station was started based upon that, and so they were really, really looking to bring artists, academics who were very, very progressive left, and bring that to the airways to kind of compete with the wars that were going on. WPFW is a station that was 37 years old. It does a mix between jazz and justice. Mm-hmm. My show is what you would call a public affairs program that really looks at Africa and the diaspora. Now, the difference with my show is that most of the time you have shows that look at Africa, politics or whatever, and then you have shows that look at Black Americans. What my show does is marriage those two particular streams of research or streams of thought. How I got into this, it was based upon my activist work. Above all, if there's anything that I do that I'm super, super proud of, whether it's the publishing or whatever, of course that's part of what I'm supposed to do. I'm a professor, but I'm an activist, first of all. And being an activist and kind of being active in DC, doing a lot of things, but also working with an organization called Trans-Africa, which was very, very big in the 1980s, and bringing down or fighting against apartheid in South Africa at that particular time. So based upon how I came into contact was basically through my activist work. It was given, the opportunity opened up, the host was leaving. My colleague, I work with this show too, is that my good friend and colleague, Moiza Montali, is the primary host, is the stationary host. I'm the executive producer and I co-host, and that's the reason why is because I'm always moving. We definitely want to move this show to get syndicated, so we need to have a stationary host. And Moiza Montali is a very, very, very important part of Africa Now. So between the both of us being a team, we definitely look at the continent of Africa, but also the African world. So one of the things that we do when we open up this show is that it's the Washington, D.C.'s only program that covers and connects the issues of the African world. So what I'm doing is that I'm actually moving into bringing back the diaspora with Africa, connecting the parts of Africa. And that takes a lot. So we do culture, politics, art. We deal with anything that has to do with people of African descent wherever they live across the globe. So if we do a program, if we're talking about South Africa, then we're going to do Southside Chicago as well, or we might do South Brixton, or we might do Brazil, something that's happening there with Afro-Colombians, or something there. And it's very, very important to kind of make those continuities and connections.
So on the radio show, you guys are trying to connect Black America with Africa. What topics do you guys generally go over in order to create that connection?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that we're trying to connect African Americans with Africa, more so than connecting Africa with African Americans. And the reason why I say that is simply because there is a cultural divide there, and there's also some misunderstandings through imperialism, colonialism, and racism. So how we do that is that one of the things that I do specifically is that the show is couched in my research. So my research really looks at how the individuals and communities define themselves in their space and how they connect to international context, but how do they do that through movements by calling for human rights. So what we do is that we look at the culture, we look at issues that deal with politics, that can be elections. And one of the things that we do specifically with the show is that we do not, I shouldn't say we do not, but we make it a point to make sure that we look at things from the ground up, not from a top-down perspective. So we have a lot of activists who are actually doing work in communities, whether it's the continent of Africa, whether it's here in the United States, and how they're creating a new space for making sure that their voice is being heard. Again, it goes back to what I was just saying, is that voiceless, I don't believe that anyone is voiceless. A lot of times our voice needs to be amplified. And that's what I use Africa Now as a platform to do, is to make sure that individuals are able to kind of have their voice magnified.
Okay, cool. It seems that you are very busy, but yet I hear that you're going to Kenya this spring break. And since your research got pushed back until the end of the year, that means I could find a lot of things in your published work about you going to Kenya and doing a lot of research. I just want to know what made you make that decision to go to Kenya for spring break and study abroad with the students. Have you been to Africa before?
Yes, I've been to Africa. This particular time, it was an opportunity that was presented to me. I didn't choose. It was basically presented to me, but of course I welcome it. But it also provided an opportunity for me to kind of first get back to the continent, but also bring students to the continent of Africa, which is a new situation for me because I've been to the continent myself, not bringing a group of students. So as far as the research is concerned, I have contacts all over Africa that we talk to consistently. This is just going to bring me face to face with them as opposed to, well, real life, because we Skype all the time. But as far as research, I'm always researching. So at this particular point, I don't think it's going to necessarily kind of enhance my research more so than give me that space, that space to kind of talk to some ideas from face to face with individuals that I've been working with, but also to meet new individuals while I'm there as well. So I mean, I have a dual purpose that I'm going there as well. Number one, to bring students to kind of make that institutional connection between Kenya and also Winston-Salem State, but also to kind of solidify some of the things that we do here at Winston-Salem State as professors, but also what I do consistently with my activist work as well, making these connections. So I mean, there's multiple layers. It was an easy choice for me when it was presented to me, but at the same token, it was an opportunity that came up.
Very well. Well, do you have anything else to add?
Not right at this moment. I don't think I have anything specifically to add, but no, I thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
No, thank you. It was very nice meeting you today.
All right, thanks.
That's all for this edition of Beneath the Surface. Until next time, I am your host, Shadonna Gorham.